I didn't expect this video to blow up so quickly. I just want to give a huge thanks to all of you for supporting my last video on the Gmod Iceberg. It took me a good while to write it all, record for it, and then edit it down, so to see it receive mostly positive feedback is pretty warming to me. I don't know what else to say other than thank you. Your support really means a lot to me. Anyways, on to the main topic at hand, the Gmod Iceberg. Again, I said in the last video that it was very possible that I got some stuff wrong, and sure enough, I did. So in this video, I'm going to be addressing the few entries that I was either wrong on or missed keynotes on. I'll also be covering several topics that did not make it onto the iceberg later in the video. You are free to skip ahead if you're more interested in that. Also, shoutouts to the creator of the iceberg, TyID, as they left a comment on my previous video clarifying some of the entries. Anyways, let's begin. So it turns out the phrase block switch is actually a direct reference to the location of the Facepunch headquarters. The English town of Bloxwich is located in the Metropolitan Bureau of Walsall in West Midlands County. That's where the Facepunch HQ is. Pretty neat, though I don't know how I managed to miss that. Maybe me being American had something to do with that, I don't know. Also, the achievement was changed twice during Gmod's history. When it was first added, it was Rusty Bullet Hole. After that, it was changed to Walsall, England. And then finally, it was changed to what it is now. Okay guys, I messed up big time. I've made a lot of mistakes in the past, but this is by far the worst mistake I've ever made. I've made a severe and continuous lapse in my judgment, and I don't expect to be forgiven. I'm simply here to apologize. The reason I am apologizing is because I pronounced minge bag as ming bag 12 minutes and 36 seconds into my iceberg video. I'm sorry to every Gmod player, and to everyone in the UK. I don't expect to be forgiven. Okay, that's enough of that. Yes, I pronounced minge bag wrong. You can stop commenting that every 30 seconds. Also, when I was talking about minge bag in my previous video, I was referring to what it meant in the context of Gmod, though it is an actual slang in the UK. According to the definition of minge bag, it is used to refer to a stingy person / miser, and or a disliked woman according to some websites. If you take the bag out of minge bag though, then it will refer to a female's genitals. Yeah, maybe I was better off pronouncing minge bag as ming bag. So this isn't a fact that I didn't know, it's more so I forgot to include it in my video. Anyways, the cheapo models do appear naturally in the Half-Life 2 campaign, though without cheats you won't get to see them up close. Both the male and police cheapo models are first used in the camera feed in the Red Letter Day chapter. With the grainy black and white video, you normally wouldn't be able to tell that the game was using a cheaper version of the regular models. The second time the male cheapo is used is in the first map of Black Mesa East, where he can be seen walking in the background to certain points. Again, you can't really tell that it's low resolution from far away. The reason these models exist is to save up on resources. Smart move on Valve's part, even if they did appear only 2 times in the campaign. So this one wasn't referring to anything specific, rather it referred to the fact that the freedom of E2 coding could lead to exploits. This is why most servers have E2 chips disabled. I also forgot to mention this in the original Iceberg video, but it goes without saying that Shambles in general is a pretty creepy map that has a great ambience background to go along with it. If you played it, then you'll know just how eerie it can be. There's also another Easter egg in this map, where you can find a newspaper on the floor in one of the houses. It reveals some of the backstory of the map, as well as credits. You can also hear sobbing in the background while you read it too. While that is all pretty neat, the main reason I brought up Shambles again is because of what unfortunately happened to the guy who created the map. In March 2016, the creator's brother posted in the comments that his little brother, the one who created the map, passed away back in January 2015. In the same comment, he also thanked everyone who played his map, saying it brought a smile to him. One of the playtesters, who was also close friends with the creator, has also confirmed his death, saying he died at 24 years old. I just want to say for a second, my heart goes out to the creator's friends and family. I know what it's like to lose a loved one, and I feel your pain. Just know, he'll always be remembered as a great map creator in the Gmod community, and a nice person all around too. Looking back at it, I feel as if the official description of this command on the Valve Software wiki didn't really explain much. Anyways, according to the Iceberg creator, this command reloads a lot of game assets. Think of it as reloading the game while not actually leaving the game and going back to the menu. It can help with missing models and particles, but there is a chance that it can crash your game if there's a lot going on. Personally, I never experienced this crash. I don't know if it's because I'm doing something wrong or that my PC is too good, but that's apparently a thing that can happen. I now know what source machines is referring to, and it's something, alright. This entry refers to an elaborate way of prop killing. If players use certain props to build the machine and then activate it, the physics engine will become confused and cause the props up top to fling around erratically. To keep it simple, the machine is made out of two parts. A static part, which consists of a bench welded to the ground, as well as two chairs nailed to it, and a dynamic part, which are three props nailed to each other. In this case, it's a bench and two vending machines welded on either side. Once you're ready, unfreeze the dynamic bench for the two vending machines to go spazzing out. How erratic it'll get is based on how you build it. In my case, I slotted the two static chairs on either side of the dynamic bench before I activated it, and it gave me more crazy results. Pretty entertaining to watch, to be honest. Though, if you want to try it out yourself, you're gonna have to make the benches and chairs unbreakable. While I went over the models themselves, I didn't go over why these models exist. It's a bit complicated. Before C models, there were these weapon models called view models, or V models for short. The difference between these and the C models is that both the weapon and player hands are all attached to the same model. This was fine for Half-Life 2 and the episodes following it, but this ended up causing some problems in later games. Since the hands and weapons were all one model, they couldn't really be swapped around. That's why many early Source games that had different player models, like Counter-Strike Source, all had the same hand model. Later versions of Source did eventually find a workaround for this, which is, of course, the C models. Now you can decouple the weapons and hands from each other without any of the hassle. The weapon C models can also be used as world models too, so now you won't have to make duplicates of the same weapon in lower quality. Anyways, before the transition to Gmod version 13, all stock weapons used the Half-Life 2 HEV gloves. When Gmod 13 rolled around, separate hand models were made for them to be rigged over said HEV gloves. It's complicated, but neat. When I did my take on this build of the game, I covered the second version of Gmod because it was released on December 27th. Though, according to the creator of the Iceberg, there are 3 versions of Gmod developed between December 24th and early January 2005. I do want to address one mistake that I made when covering Gmod 2 though. The earliest version of Construct wasn't added until Gmod version 3, released about a week after Gmod 2. It only stayed around until version 3A was released, which overhauled the surroundings. What I'm saying is, Construct wasn't in Gmod 2. The only maps that were in the game back then were the Half-Life 2 maps. It's very likely that the Construct map was added in by whoever re-uploaded the old versions. Back to the creator's comment, I did find 2 other versions of Gmod that were released before January 2005. Not much is really different compared to what I already covered. Though this does make me wonder if there are other versions of Gmod either not released to the public or are now lost. So over time, my opinion on the G-Man virus has changed from thinking it's a hoax to thinking it's very likely real. Let me explain. This comment by Sammy Whammy detailed their experience with the G-Man virus when they were a kid. Before this point, almost every post that I could find about the G-Man virus was the same copy pasta. barely unique from each other. So to see someone go into detail with their experience with the virus did get me interested again. They even listed off a possible add-on that could have caused the virus. So I searched again, and even though I still didn't find any screen caps or videos of the virus in action, I did gather some more information on it. Before we get to more of the specifics, I want to go back to the Facepunch forums for a second. So yes, most of the threads revolving around the G-Man virus were not archived. However, there is an archive of the main Garry's Mod discussion page that was created around the time when the virus was spreading. Archived on August 2nd, 2009 to be exact. I was able to find the titles of 3 or 4 threads discussing the G-Man virus, as well as how many replies or views are received. This thread from Sass Sharky received the most replies and views. While I still wasn't able to get into the threads themselves, since they weren't archived, this did give me some good insight to how widespread it was. Now onto the G-Man virus itself. I was able to find 2 old Steam announcement pages that go into specifics on the virus. Firstly, the default name for the virus's Lua file is volatilevirus.luol, though it could have other names for it. Second, once the Lua file for the virus is active, not only will it jump scare the player with the face of G-Man, but it can also mess with your keybinds and background too. Third, the virus cannot be transmitted onto another server. Reminder, this was before the file transfer exploit was found, which was the cause of the cough virus. And finally, and probably most importantly, the Lua file itself isn't dangerous. However, it can open to a shock website called nimp.org. This site is what will cause the spamming of multiple porn and virus sites, as discussed in my last video. One name that I've commonly came across while researching this virus is Chris Astor. Chris Astor was an infamous Gmod hacker back in 2009, responsible for hacking and taking down servers. He also created several Lua viruses and have them spread by either creating fake servers or by uploading fake add-ons to garrysmod.org in some cases. He also owned a site back then where he allegedly sold his viruses. A lot of people hated him. Really hated him, in fact. Anyways, it's commonly thought that Chris Astor was the one behind the virus, as he made other Lua viruses in the past. In fact, while it's not entirely functional, here's one of his viruses in action right here.
Rise and shine, Mr. Freeman. Rise and shine.
I think it's likely Chris Astor given the circumstances, though there were 2 other names that have popped up while researching. One of them is Trogval, who appeared alongside Chris Astor. Though according to this reply, Trogval was allegedly a hijacked account. Another name that has popped up when I asked around on the Facepunch forum is Begotten, a group of exploiters. That's all I know about these 2 though, as when I tried searching them up on Google, I found nothing. And that's it for the G-Man virus. Again, I will say I was wrong for assuming that was a hoax too quickly, though despite that, we still don't have a full picture of it. The original Lua file for the virus is likely lost now, but if one of you somehow still has it, then let me know how it works exactly. Heck, I'll even try it out myself if you're willing to share it. I just want to quickly address this one since a lot of people are commenting this in the previous Iceberg video. Yes, there is a port of the Escape the Box minigame on the workshop, though now it doesn't work. You can't break any boxes, so you're pretty much just trapped in there, unable to do anything except press Z. That's it for the corrections. Now let's move on to the topics that weren't on the original Iceberg. Some of these entries I found on my own, others were user suggested. If it's the latter, then I'll be including the original comments on the bottom of the screen. Anyways, I hope you are ready, cause we're gonna be taking one more dive into the Gmod Iceberg. Let's do this. FNAF saves. I swear, if I see any more of these saves, I am gonna... Let's not get ahead of myself. This entry refers to many Five Nights at Freddy's saves that are uploaded to the workshop. It would be understandable if it was a somewhat short fad back in 2014 to 2015, but no, these are still being uploaded today. There are so many, in fact, that the search extends to, I shit you not, 500 pages long. What? Was one not enough? Why would you need this many pages of them? Why? Most of them are not even high quality saves. In fact, they all feel the same. Oh, but don't say that to the original uploaders, otherwise they'll throw a hissy fit and tell you to
lovingly care for
yourself. As much as I hate trends, I have to jump on this one. Plus, I need to distance myself from the fandom somehow. Stop making stupid FNAF saves. Okay, that's it. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. GM Flatgrass Hidden Room. On GM Flatgrass, if you no-clip into one of the walls underneath the platform, you'll find the hidden room. Inside the room, you'll only find one thing, which is the doll from the other hidden room in Construct. I'm starting to notice a trend here. Sanic clones. Another trend that has plagued the workshop, though to a much lesser extent compared to the FNAF saves. Hell, even I fell victim to making one of these. All you just need is the original Sanic Nextbot files, and then change the image to something different, swap the sounds, and you're done. Even though these add-ons are painfully easy to make, they are for the most part somewhat popular. In fact, they often appear in Gmod videos with millions of views. These videos are likely why there are so many Sanic clones on the workshop. A person sees a meme chase on a channel they watch and they go, huh, I want one of my creations to appear in one of these. And bam, another Sanic clone is created and uploaded to the workshop. Yes, there are some Sanic clones on the workshop that have their behavior changed slightly, but it's still pretty much the same thing. As fun as these meme chases were back then, I am kinda glad this trend has died down. Sandbox. Sandbox is a spiritual successor to Garry's mod, slated to release in early access sometime this year. Development starts somewhere in 2017, with it first being worked on Unreal Engine 4, before it was eventually moved to Source 2. To put it simply, think of this game as like Gmod, only way less limited and more advanced. According to the official site, it says, quote, "It's not going to be Garry's Mod 2. My hope is that it will eclipse what is possible in Garry's Mod rather than simply be a modern version of it." It's still in pretty heavy development, but looking at the test footage, it so far looks really promising. Heck, who knows, maybe this game might receive its own Iceberg chart at some point. GM Construct 13 beta builds. Before the official release of Gmod 13, there was a community-led effort to update GM Construct, a project greenlit by Garry himself. Facepunch users would offer suggestions for new additions in the next Construct map, with Garry getting the final say in the matter. Of course, this led to many back and forths between people with differing ideas, like different textures or different floors to different buildings. Anyways, every once in a while, a new version of the map is released for people to playtest and offer feedback. Lucky for us, most, if not all of the map's history is stored in this archive. They're VMFs though, so you'll have to compile them yourself if you want to play them. The earliest version of this map is dated March 23rd, 2012, and you can tell that it's very early. Besides looking unfinished, there are two major differences compared to the final build. One, there is a ladder inside the skyscraper that will take you to different floors. And two, there are these hidden vents inside the walls that are kinda useless if we're being honest. One thing that separates the beta construct from the modern construct is these tunnels, added in a few days after the first release. These tunnels will lead you to various parts of the map, such as the dark room, a submarine room, an underground chamber, and inside one of the skyscrapers. These tunnels actually stuck around for a little while, going through several changes. First, they were kinda claustrophobic and dark at times. Then they were widened out a bit with more lighting added, though for some reason certain lights were flickering. Then they removed the creepy ambience of it by removing the faulty lights. And finally, in the last few updates that had these tunnels, they were widened out even more and converted into mine shafts. While these tunnels are pretty neat, they were ultimately removed in later builds of the map. They were removed after the community deemed them too unnecessary, and honestly, I can see why. What would you need these tunnels for? Sure, they are cool to explore, but realistically, what is the point of having them? To get to one point of the map to the other, you can already use NoClip for that. Plus, the dark room and the skyscraper is already accessible without NoClip. As for the 2 rooms that were exclusive with the tunnels, I honestly don't see much use with them either. For the sub room, sure, you can probably use it to make submarines, but remember, the construct pond isn't that big, so you're kinda limited. As for the underground chamber, I have absolutely no idea. So yeah, the tunnels are gone. Sad, but at least we get a new skybox, which looked a lot more cluttered compared to the skybox we got now. From this point forward, changes made to the map are somewhat barely noticeable, only being made towards the lighting, skybox, or certain rooms like the mirror room or the secret room. The last beta build in the archive is dated October 23rd, 2012, with it being very similar to the modern construct. The only real difference is the secret room. It has a lot more props compared to what we have now. So yeah, that's a really summarized overview of the Construct 13 beta builds. In the description, there will be a link to the original community project thread, along with the archives if you want to try them out yourself. Harmless Companion Cube. If we're talking about the one add-on that has brought me so much dread in the early years, then it would have to be the Harmless Companion Cube add-on. Originally uploaded in 2008 by Tater Bonanza, this companion cube seems, well, pretty harmless at first. However, once you turn around, you'll hear a noise. Once you turn back around, you'll see that the companion cube has moved closer to you. Basically, this thing is a stalker. It'll keep following you and it will play a random creepy noise every time it moves. It can even move if it's frozen too. If it gets close enough to you, it will pull out a knife and kill you. Sure, it's not as scary now, but back then, a lot of people, including myself, were pretty freaked out by this thing. It's simple, but effective. Gmod 13 Hotels. Gmod 13 Hotels is a sandbox and roleplay hybrid map of 2 skyscrapers, made by Dragon Man, or now known as Sky Captain. These skyscrapers are so high in fact that you can't even see the ground. Both towers serve a different purpose. One tower houses the hotel itself, with all the necessities needed. It also has a prison complex. You know, just like every other hotel. The other tower is more of an office complex for working and such. Not much going on here, but it does have a pool, which is pretty alright. It's also suggested that both towers are under Combine control, since the technology they use is all here. Now, both of these towers are hiding pretty creepy secrets in the lower levels. In the office tower, there's an abandoned hotel floor down the elevator shaft, labeled Floor 666. All of these rooms are pretty eerie to explore, but one room that sticks out from the others is this one near the window. There is blood flowing under the door, and sobbing can be heard from the other side. It's locked, so you won't be able to enter it normally, but if you force your way in, then you'll be greeted with this lovely surprise. Dick move, Sky Captain. The other tower's secret has a bit more lore to it. In the prison complex, there is this button on the control panel which, if pressed, will open up this gate in the courtyard. If you jump in, you'll find yourself in these dark tunnels. There is a way you can leave, but if you explore for a bit, you'll find a small opening with a wooden chair and a fire that is still lit. Breaking the boards and walking inside will grant you this piece of dialogue. It's said that a rat man lives in these tunnels somewhere. Some claim to hear his screams coming from the dark pit. Maybe he lives down there somewhere? Going further into the tunnel, you'll find the dark pit that was mentioned in the dialogue. Underneath the platform, there is a hole in the wall. If you no-clip over to it and enter inside, you'll receive more dialogue. Ratman escaped from prison in 1994. He has been living here ever since. In this part of the underground tunnel, you'll find a makeshift room where the Ratman has been living, as well as the Ratman himself, which is a normal Half-Life 2 stalker. He does nothing special, but in an earlier version of this map, he'll kill you if you get too close. Of course, there are other secrets in this map too if you look around long enough, but these two are by far the creepiest. Found on the tape ARG maps. These might count as Half-Life 2 maps, but I'm gonna include them here anyway since I'm sure many people use Gmod to play them. Found on the tape is a currently unsolved ARG channel that features 3 disturbing VHS videos, all uploaded in 2011. While the tapes themselves are pretty creepy, the main thing we're gonna be focusing on is the maps that were uncovered. People who investigated the channel found these maps from decoding a code wheel, converting binary code, and emailing the channel directly. The first map begins with your camera stuck to the corner of a black and white room. A Shepherd tone would also be playing in the background too. This is all the map has to offer at first, but if you manage to snap the camera back to the player's view and attempt to leave the room, you're greeted with a jump scare with the face from clip 94. If you're playing on Half-Life 2, the game would crash after that. The second map has the player crawling through a maze of vents with tense music playing in the background. During your trek through the vents, there is a very good chance that you'll come across an earth-shaken charred corpse that is flowing through the vents. In Half-Life 2, if it comes in contact with you, it can crash your game. If you find a drop-off point in the vents and fall in, you'll hear a distorted scream before the screen flashes white, followed by calming music. The third map begins with more vents, though this time they're a lot more open and you won't have to deal with a flying corpse demon. After following the path for about a minute, you'll suddenly regain color. You'll also find a room that is very similar to the room in the first map. Continue past the door and down the path, you'll find another drop-off point, though this one instead leads to your inevitable death. The fourth and final map opens with, you guessed it, vents. Though compared to the last 2 maps, these vents are even more maze-like, with it being very easy to get lost in. Eventually you can find a drop-off point behind some boxes, leading to even more vents that are partially submerged. After navigating through the second maze of vents, you'll find corpses littering the ground, as well as another drop. What happens next is a chase sequence where you're running away from a humanoid creature known as Armless. You'll find a ladder at the end of the chase sequence, but you can't escape, so you have to wait until Armless eventually reaches you. If it catches you on Half-Life 2, then the game will crash. While I want to make sense of these maps, remember that after 10 years, this ARG still has yet to be solved. And honestly, I don't think this ARG is ever gonna be solved, because while the final code has been solved, it just leads to another dead end. One person has found a URL that is possibly related to the channel, though the website is now down, so we're probably too late. Half-Life 2 not required. Since all of the assets already come pre-packaged with Gmod, you technically don't even need Half-Life 2 to play through the campaign. All you just need is the map files from the game and you can play it no problem. Am I saying you should do this? Absolutely not. In fact, I'd say you'd be missing out if you were to play it like this. RP Industrial 17 Easter Egg. There is a pretty creepy Easter egg in the roleplay map Industrial 17, but you can only access it if you have the Day and Night Cycle add-on installed. The steps to access it are the following. Head near the combine force field on the train tracks, input this command into the console, enter into the building above the tracks, find a sparking electric box and press E on it. The force field should go down after that. Enter inside the tunnel and you'll encounter this sequence of events.
What's going on in there? Look at these readings. He seems to be... Get him back on course. We need re-immersion therapy now.
If you don't know, this Easter egg is a reference to the cut train room level in the Half-Life 2 beta, where the player is suddenly thrown into a horror section mid-tutorial. This part of the map is pretty dang scary for a tutorial level, which is probably why the devs have to remove it. Still, imagine if someone found this Easter egg while they were in an RP server alone and they encounter this. Yeah, I would not touch the map for a few weeks if I was that person. 2009 RP Wars. DDoSing in RP servers is nothing new. In fact, they're still somewhat common today. If you have some sort of DDoS protection system though, then it shouldn't affect you. However, in 2009, there were several RP servers that were launching large-scale DDoSing campaigns against each other. Several popular dark RP servers were going down left and right, as well as major RP servers and forums like Pulsar Effect and Taco and Banana. Since there were so many DDoS attacks during this era, it's kinda hard to keep track of them all. Plus, it's hard to tell who attacked who, as others claim that they were framed. It doesn't help that most of the forum posts revolving around these attacks were not archived. A common tactic that was developed during the 2009 RP wars was stutter torture, or stut torture for short. Stut torture usually consists of a team of players targeting certain other players, most of them being no older than 13 or 15. They would bind the targeted player with certain RP rules, one of which is Fear RP. Then they would take the player to a secluded area and subject them to 5-minute intervals of DDoS attacks on their IP. After that, the victim would be given a list of demands. Some of these demands are related to the server itself, like answering what the codes to a certain base are, while others are more personal, like answering what your real-life friend's address is. If the player refuses to answer any of them, then they would either be threatened or be subjected to more DDoS attacks. All of this while the player is forced to stay on the server. While nothing is really preventing them from leaving and shutting off their modem until the attacks stop, they would be banned from the server for a lengthy period of time for breaking one of the rules. Yet the group of players who tortured them for so long usually get off scot-free. Truly, truly evil. JB Mod. Before there was Gmod, there was another sandbox type mod called JB Mod, made by JB55. The first version was released on December 1st, 2004, but the earliest version I could still find in play is version 0.3. According to the official site, this mod was created because, quote, nerds on HL2 World wanted to get back to making sexual poses with the ragdolls in Half-Life 2. Right. Anyways, JB Mod was the first to modify the source code of Half-Life 2 and add a functional fizz gun to the game, which works about the same way as it does in Gmod. There were also custom maps that you can mess around in too. Garry was actually inspired by this mod, hence why he named his game Garry's Mod. Gmod was actually released around the time when JB Mod stopped receiving regular updates for a good while. It isn't long before more and more people started switching over to Gmod and playing it. And we all know how this ends. Gmod becomes one of the most popular source mods to date, and JB Mod fades into obscurity. As you might expect, the team behind JB Mod were not happy with this news. Just looking at the site and videos on their channel, you can tell that they were butthurt that Gmod was more popular, often shaming Garry himself and the player base too. They even made allegations that Garry stole code from JB Mod and used it in his own mod, even though the evidence they presented doesn't make any sense if you think about it for more than a second.
HL2 World had formed a development team to work on the mod. One of the members defected from the team and had given JB55's code to Garry. Garry used this stolen code to add the physics gun to his own mod. Once Garry had stolen enough features, he took this new version of his mod and posted it on the Steam-powered forum.
Okay, but the phys gun wasn't added until December 27, 2004, which was when Gmod version 2 was released. And this forum post was made on March 2005. Why would they wait a few months before they addressed it? Also, Gmod was first uploaded to ModDB, not the Steam-powered forums. Back to JB Mod, around 2012, JB Mod 3.0 was posted onto Steam Greenlight. A few hours later, it was banned. The JB Mod team said that the mod was banned for no reason, but I beg to differ, really. Not only was this after the team openly mocked everyone involved in Gmod, as well as the baseless allegations, but in the Greenlight page, they used images of Half-Life 2 characters in sexual poses. So yes, moderators had several good reasons to ban it. Even if it wasn't banned, I doubt it would have became popular. 2012 was around the time when Gmod was really blowing up, so many people probably wouldn't have noticed that there was another sandbox game on Steam. Also, the JB Mod team already had a pretty bad reputation, so it was a lose-lose situation either way. Honestly, the main reason JB Mod died was because of the team itself. They were lazy to release new versions, they acted immature when Gmod became popular, they either used fake accounts or edited screenshots to make it look like people believed them, and lie, and lie, and lie. The Gmod factions meta. The meta is an ongoing war where over 20 independent factions battle amongst each other for control of different servers. These battles usually consist of dozens of players fighting against one another, either using guns provided in the server or advanced machines made by skilled builders in the faction they serve. Over the many years, thousands of unique war vehicles were made and put to use, with the hope of giving the corresponding faction an advantage in the playing field. First, these vehicles were pretty standard, only using vanilla props and tools. Then they became more advanced with the addition of PHX props, then wire mod, and finally ACF. While most of the recent battles are pretty well documented, specifics on the early history of the meta is for the most part lost and up in the air. According to the Gmod Communities Archive, the earliest known group related to the meta was the Gmod War News, founded in January 2009, and it mentions combat against the Minge Bags. As for the community itself, while some parts of it can be toxic, there's a good portion of it that ultimately have fun with the whole thing. Some of them enjoy the teamwork of it, while others enjoy some of the building aspects. Looking at some of the recap footage, you can tell how fun yet competitive these battles between two different video game factions can be. If you want to learn more about the specifics of the meta, like vehicles, factions, and conflicts, then I recommend checking out the RFAI wiki. Gmod 9fan Reuploads and Classic GM videos. Gmod 9fan Reuploads and Classic GM videos are YouTube channels that both involve a person reuploading their old Gmod videos. They might seem normal at first, but then you start to quickly notice that something is wrong. Sometimes it's subtle, like the video distorting, or the player acting in a strange way. Other times, you can clearly tell something is going on. Yes, both of these channels have the protagonists dealing with the paranormal in their game, one of them with a dark figure and the other with a male cheapo model. All of these videos have a really creepy yet nostalgic ambience to them. Imagine this. You're looking through your old Gmod videos and pictures, remembering all the great memories you had with the game when you were young, and then you see something in the background. You might assume it's another player at first, likely an old friend, but then you get the grim realization that you were actually alone on single player. So you keep watching to find out more, and you start noticing things that you have no memories of, like you walking around panicked while alone, or you swimming into a pond that goes down for forever, or your video glitching out for no reason. That's basically what these channels are. In the description, there will be links to both of their channels if you want to check them out. Gmod9fan is the older channel, but seems to be inactive as of now. Classic GM is still going on, and even has some ARG elements if you're interested in that. Map Void. We all know how the map void works. If you no-clip out of bounds and turn off no-clip, the player will get stuck. In older versions of the source engine, you would just keep falling forever if you are out of the map's boundaries. Strangely though, props can exist in the void. If you made it so a prop would not collide with everything, including the world, then it will just keep falling. Supposedly. I couldn't really find an add-on that would have displayed the props under the map. Not only that, if you freeze a breakable prop just below the surface and no clip under, you can break it no problem. It gets even stranger though. In this video, Kilburn uses a plugin to make props visible in the void. He shows that everything will interact with each other just fine. NPCs also work in the void. Most of the time, for some reason the rebels don't shoot back at enemies. He eventually builds a flying machine underneath the ground and begins to explore. During his exploration, he bumps into something and is prevented from moving forwards. There doesn't seem to be an explanation for this, but I think he ran into an invisible wall. Looking at the decompiled version of Construct 12, you can find geometry under the map that has no draw properties, with it ending right next to the bunker. Though, looking at Kilburn's video, it seems he ran into the invisible object before he gets next to the bunker, so I might be wrong with that theory. Maybe there's something paranormal in the void, who knows? According to the description, if you go too far out into the void, almost everything will stop operating correctly. Weird. Breaking the gravity. If you go into the server settings and set the gravity to a ridiculously high number, the physics engine will just give up. The same will apply if you go into the negatives. There's the obvious, like you not being able to jump, but then there are things that don't make any sense. If you spawn in a prop and attempt to grab it with your fizz gun, it'll begin to shake around violently, resisting your fizz gun pull. Sometimes it will just disappear too. It's not like it's being pulled under the world. No, it literally disappears, since you won't be able to remove it with the undo command. The same things will happen with the gravity gun too. Even though the gravity is really high, these props are not really affected by it. In fact, they'll just stay floating in the air, spinning in place most of the time too. It will also apply if you spawn in a breakable prop and smash it, as the debris will just stay in place and sometimes spin. As for the dupes, each one is affected differently. Some dupes will float around like the other props, while others immediately break down upon spawn. If you spawn in bouncy balls, then they'll immediately begin freaking out, often bunching together in groups if you spawn multiple of them. And the sound they make is... ugh. It's not really recommended to spawn in an NPC, cause if you do, your game will lag. 60 frames to 1 frame instantly. If you manage to kill the NPC though, then they'll either disappear or their body will stay in place. If it's the latter, then no matter how many times you shoot the body, it will not go down. The only thing that it's affected by is the fizz gun. By the way, don't get too close to it, otherwise there's a good chance that you'll insta-die. Basically, everything acts so strangely in this state. Even your weapons aren't safe, as the grenades will float in place and the RPG will sometimes kill you instantly. You can set the gravity to a higher value in the console, and while you can get some varying results with this method, there's a good chance that the game will crash. Fearless RP Fish Market. Buckle up everyone, cause for a story involving in-game fish, this one is gonna be a real trip. In the Fearless RP server, there is a pond in the forest of Evo City V2D, which can be used as a fishing spot. The fish you catch from this pond don't really have a set item price, so for the most part, they were useless, right?
Wrong!
In 2011, several players had an idea to create an entire economy that was dependent on fish. At first, it was actually really successful, with each fish being sold from $500 to $600. Many fisherman stalls were made, and several trading groups sprung up during this time. It was going really well, until a glitch was discovered that ruined everything. Fearless RP has an anti-AFK system in place, where if the player stands still for too long, they'll get kicked. However, a couple of people found a glitch that will allow them to AFK fish and avoid being kicked from the server. The players who found the glitch didn't really mention it to anyone in the server at first, but eventually someone had to open their mouth. Once word got out, many players rushed to the lake and used the glitch to their advantage, catching hundreds of fish.
That's a lot of fish.
Once they gathered as much fish as they can, they would try to sell it all to several trading groups at a discounted price. The entire fish market began to quickly collapse after that, with trading groups refusing to purchase any more fish, and the fish price going from $600 to just $25 overnight. Riots began breaking out through the server, with arson running rampant among fisherman stalls and random businesses. Government forces were also outnumbered too, unable to stop the riots. At first, it seemed like a pretty normal riot, or as normal as a riot can get, though eventually the focus of the riots shifted over towards 5 major trading groups. This is because of the theories that were flowing around that they were the ones who organized the crash, so that they could buy out all the fish in the server and sell it back for $750. During the riots, stun torture started being used again on players, with protesters DDoSing and threatening players with their real name and address until they extorted them from all of their money and items. Once word got out over how bad the riots were, the 5 major trading groups went from standard fishing and farming groups to private military companies. While it's not clear how these riots end exactly, what follows next is many raids and clashes targeting anti-fish groups. All of this over some in-game fish. GM Construct 2. In 2010, Garry shared a link to the Facepunch forums that contained VMF files for GM Construct and an unfinished map called GM Construct 2. The original files are now deleted, but I did eventually find a download of Construct 2 on a Russian website. I was able to confirm that it's the same map by comparing old screenshots from Facepunch users. The map is similar to the normal Construct map, but not quite. The shape is there, and some of the landmarks are there, but everything else is different. First, there are more buildings that you can enter in this map, something which the original Construct doesn't have. There's also breakable glass ceilings too. Second, I'm not sure if it's because it's unfinished or what, but several key assets from the original Construct are missing in Construct 2. These include the dark room and the white colorable room. There's some points where you can clearly tell that the map is unfinished, whether it be the textures or the lighting in some buildings, but then there are other points where the design doesn't make any sense. Like, why is there a ramp here? What point does it serve? Either way, I think Construct 2 is pretty interesting. You can tell Garry was going for something different in this map, but I doubt it would have became as popular as the original Construct map, even if it was finished. Semper the Black Figure. Not to be confused with the other entry involving black figures, Semper is an entity that can appear in random sandbox servers, or in single player. Its appearance is a black and white statue of Gordon Freeman, which is normally used as a player model in Half-Life 2 for some reason. Anyways, Semper will only appear in old servers and default maps like Construct or Flatgrass. It can appear from a far distance from the player, and it will disappear if the player looks at it or gets too close. Though sometimes it will just stay in the same place and not leave until the player restarts the game. It's also speculated that Semper can crash your game too, but so far it hasn't been proven. The exact origin of Semper is unknown. Some say Semper just exists without a reason. Others say that Semper has existed since the first release of Gmod, or even Half-Life 2. Surprisingly, I think this one has some truth to it, but not in the paranormal sense of it. Let me explain. Back in 2019, I was messing around in single player when I accidentally enabled 2 add-ons that conflicted with each other. This bugged out the game and displayed my player model as the Gordon Freeman statue. I think some of these Semper sightings are the results of people's player models glitching out and displaying the statue model, either from conflicting add-ons or poorly coded add-ons that overwrite certain sandbox hooks. As for the alleged sightings of Semper appearing and then disappearing in single player, then I have no explanation for that. It could very well be a glitch too, but I don't know what would specifically cause this type of glitch to happen. I would also like to stress that I haven't found video proof of this phenomenon, only pictures, but I think the pictures do a good enough job explaining what's going on. Either way, I'll consider this legend mostly true. I just wish we had a concrete answer for the single player appearances. Facehook 3 virus. During its lifespan, Gmod 9 had a pretty big problem when it came to Lua viruses, which makes sense since it was the first version to add Lua programming. There were a lot of viruses back then, but one of the more destructive viruses that came from that era has to be the Facehook 3 virus. There were other versions before 3, but they weren't as bad as compared to this one. If you were infected by it, then it could do a variety of different stuff to your computer. These include logging your keystrokes, blocking access to certain sites, wasting space on your hard drive, and deleting hal.dll, which is crucial for running your system. Honestly, I'm glad Gmod has improved over time with Lua security. Back then, we had system-ending viruses like Facehook, but now Lua viruses are only restricted to what they can do in-game. While the latter can still be pretty annoying, at least we now don't have to reinstall Windows whenever we install the wrong add-on. And with that last entry, that concludes the Garry's Mod Iceberg. While I don't plan on covering any more Iceberg charts anytime soon, I did have a lot of fun making these videos. I learned a lot of interesting stuff from researching these topics, and some of them were so in-depth that I could probably make an entire separate video covering just one of them. That will be for a different series though. I hope you enjoyed this 2-part series on the Gmod Iceberg. I do have other large-scale videos planned for this channel, so if you're interested in seeing more of my content, then be sure to hit that subscribe button. Thank you all for watching, and as always, I will see you guys next time.